Hey guys, it's Rob here and welcome back to another video. So in this video I did want to discuss something that's a pretty interesting topic, I think. What is the future of the Nintendo Switch 2? And this is not the future of the Nintendo Switch 2 that I'm talking about in my other video that I did. I'm more talking about where does Nintendo go after the Nintendo Switch 2? I want to talk about the possibilities, what Nintendo could do, maybe what they could not do. Let's talk about that because I think that's a very interesting topic. So when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, I love the Nintendo Switch 2 and I just love the Nintendo Switch 2 as a concept. Being able to take a full game and have it on the TV, but then take it out of the dock and on the go is a fantastic thing. It's one thing that I always thought would do very, very well. In fact, a video I made years ago at this point, I did it on the Nintendo Switch, the original Nintendo Switch, and I said when everyone else is trying to chase power, Nintendo's probably just gonna bring out a more stronger Switch and they're gonna be on top, and that's exactly what's happening right now. If I actually have that video on hand and I can find the link to it, I will leave it in the description below. But watching and listening to that is a very interesting listen because it really does showcase that I was 100% right because it's exactly what's happening right now. For the most part, I mean, I didn't expect Xbox to basically go third party, but you know, here we are. But again, circling back around to like the main topic of this video, what does Nintendo do? Well, the first one that they would do is just make a Nintendo Switch Pro or Nintendo Switch 3, right? I do feel like that's the natural progression of where we're going with this. And there are some things with this too, because it is kind of disappointing to see Nintendo, or at least would be disappointing for Nintendo to just keep making Nintendo Switch upgrades. I do love the kooky side of Nintendo. I do love when they try these weird things. And I kind of feel like if they were to just keep on making stronger Switches, I mean, yeah, it would be great because then we can take eventually like 4K 60 FPS, and I'm talking native 4K on the go with fantastic battery. And of course that's like after a lot of iterations, of course, but overall that would be really cool. But on the same side, it's like, well then how does Nintendo have their kooky side, right? How do they do these cool things? You could still do things with like the Joy-Con and do things with the Switch as well. I guess they could still do that. Maybe even have some sort of VR attachment for the original, or not the original Nintendo Switch, for whatever future version of the Switch is. That would be pretty cool. Or have some kind of AR experience. But I don't know, just never having a new console, like a fresh new console, a fresh new brand from Nintendo, kind of like how PlayStation just does the PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then eventually the 6. I just kind of feel like that would be a little bit disappointing, you know? But then on the flip side, you have to say, well, if Nintendo goes away from the Nintendo Switch 2, it's gonna seem like a downgrade. The Nintendo Switch 2 can already do pretty fantastic graphics, and the power has been shown to be able to handle a lot of these games. So my question is it really worth having the power of, let's say, the PlayStation 5 in favor of having a console that you could take on the go? In my personal opinion, no, it isn't. I would rather be able to take that thing out of the dock and play it in bed, or play it at the beach, or play it on like an airplane ride or something like that. But at the same time, it would feel like a downgrade. Not only that, but I really do like the Joy-Cons. And also, not only that, but the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. And I'm sure like future iterations of that would be still fantastic, don't get me wrong. But like overall, it would feel like a downgrade in my personal opinion. Does anyone else feel like that? Like if they were to go to like a traditional console like the PlayStation 5, would that feel like a downgrade? A second future I think would be pretty interesting is having two different consoles again. I wonder if Nintendo would ever go back to doing that. Eventually they'll phase out the original Nintendo Switch and they'll bring out like a handheld and a main device, kind of like the rumored thing that Sony's doing. That's another thing I do wonder if Nintendo would ever do. I mean, that would be a massive risk because what if like one doesn't do well over the other, you know? And then you would just think like, well, why didn't you just make another Switch, right? Again, it all comes down to like just how perfect the model for the Nintendo Switch is. And I just don't know how Nintendo is gonna get over that. How are they gonna make it more alluring than the original Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2? Are we just stuck with this form factor, or is Nintendo gonna do something to make us want the next console? Like the one thing about the Nintendo Switch is that it is not only a very fun device to play with because you can take it out of the dock and put it back in the dock, but now that we have the Nintendo Switch 2, it's more powerful, so these games are going to look fantastic and do look fantastic. Back on the Nintendo Switch 1, I could definitely see the argument of someone saying, man, I really wish Nintendo just went with a different type of console so we can have more power, and some of these games don't run like they do now. But now we have the Nintendo Switch 2, and unless things end up progressing with like other consoles and PC games and all that stuff, and we go back to how games were running on the Switch 1, but just on the Switch 2, which I don't think that's going to happen, especially with DLSS involved. I don't really see how a home console that's not like the Nintendo Switch is gonna be an upgrade over this, because when you make a new console, you want it to be an upgrade over the past one, right? At least in some way, shape, or form. And if something as successful as the Nintendo Switch ends up just going back to a regular old console, I kind of feel like it would be a downgrade. And there is also more downsides to Nintendo going that route. Obviously, that's gonna cost more money. Things are already getting more expensive, right? So if Nintendo does end up going with like an ultra powerful console, then obviously it's gonna cost more money, even more money than the Nintendo Switch 2. Who knows what's gonna happen with things being more expensive? Who knows if they're gonna get even more expensive than they already are? I mean, I hope not. Jesus, man. Like, I'm already hurting already. Don't hurt me anymore, right? Taking me when I'm down. But I hope things don't get more expensive. And if Nintendo ends up going with like a regular old console, I'm sure they'll probably make it more powerful. And if they do decide to go the power route, because Nintendo hasn't done that for quite some time, they kind of are going with the Switch 2 with the power. But I mean, I feel like that's more out of necessity to keep getting third-party games and have developers more happy and make games easier and have a reason to actually upgrade to the Nintendo Switch 2. But if they just made a home console that's more powerful, then it's like, okay, how much does this thing cost? You know what I mean? I mean, that's what we're all thinking about the Xbox handheld. We know that it's going to be pretty powerful, especially when you compare it to the very same thing. I think it's the Ally ROG. I'm probably saying that wrong. I don't know too much about that. Again, I don't cover too many Xbox things unless the stuff interests me, like Fable or something like Perfect Dark, you know? But like, they didn't showcase the price for a reason, and even with the original Nintendo Switch, there's a reason why they didn't showcase the price, right? We know why they didn't showcase the price now. So if they went with the home console and it's more powerful, obviously that's gonna cost more. So that's another thing, like the cost of things are going up, the cost of that device would be more, rather than maybe having something a little bit less weaker, but enough power to be able to run these games and make them look and run fantastic. But yeah, I just wanted to discuss that, just kind of the possibilities, or just overall discussing like what is the future of Nintendo Switch consoles, because I think it is a very interesting thing, and I really do want to know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What do you guys want from Nintendo? Because I am struggling to even think of like what they could do other than a Switch form factor. Like if they go to a home console, I feel like that would be a downgrade. Maybe you guys disagree with that. Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.